I think I have a thing for tape. When I have to refill my tape inventory, I get a little excited about it. I go to the paint store, I go to the hardware store. Sometimes I order tape online. That's a really exciting day for me. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you guys had a nice week last week. It was Easter week, so hopefully whoever is celebrating, for those that are celebrating Easter, hopefully you guys enjoyed the time with your family, had some nice weather. Springtime is coming around here. So nice in New Jersey. I love springtime. The leaves start to bud on the trees. All the flowers are coming out. The lawn is turning green. So I'll be out there mowing pretty soon. I got to get my mower blade sharpened. I got to do an oil change on my tractor. I like springtime. The older I get, the longer winters become, especially with kids. They're just cooped up inside. Well, I think that we spend as a family, excuse me, a fair amount of time outside, and I still am looking forward to spring where the kids can come home, they can hop across to the neighbor's yard, they can play outside, they can go run out in the woods, whatever they want to do to get outside. Softball season is starting up for the girls, which is exciting. I always enjoy that. We did have a game, I guess it was a week ago, and it was so cold. I'm used to softball being in the later in the spring or in the summer where you're outside sweating it out, bringing tents to get you out of the sun, some shade. But I was freezing. I left my house and it was sunny out. It was a later game, and the girls are all out there in short sleeves playing softball fine, and I was being a massive baby, but I could not wait to get in the car and get home. But luckily they smoked the team that they played. I think they won by 9, and super proud of them. I do help out some with coaching. I played baseball when I was younger, but Selby's 9. She's in 4th grade. They're not at the point that they really need a softball player to be coaching them, or a highly experienced baseball player. So just like everything I do, I generally will get down into some sort of rabbit hole and figure out what I need to know to be able to coach them, and then dive into the details with them. So we have other coaches who teach the broader principles. We have some who just are really good with the girls in a more fatherly or motherly sense, and they're instilling those principles in the girls. And I like to work on the more detail oriented technique. Pull the girls aside individually, go over things with them, so then I can focus on digging deep into those details and have my own unique relationships with each of these girls that we can work on as far as building up their confidence in softball and in life. And it's a travel team, so the girls are generally all in the same age and they're progressing all together. So it's been a few years with these girls that we've got to see them kind of come into their own and grow up and get better, and they all have so much fun. So it's a lot of fun to get out there and see them. We play just local towns. We have a few tournaments a year, and it's one of those things that I actually enjoy while it's happening. A lot of times I think back on experiences in life, and it's not until hindsight that I realize, wow, that was really fun. But these girls make it so much fun, and they're just having a blast, and they love the camaraderie just as much as the actual game itself. So it's nice to be around, and it makes me feel young, and it makes me miss being a kid. But it's really cool to be a part of that. I don't commit as much time as other coaches. I commit as much time as I can, but I do not want the pressure of saying, "Hey, I have to be there at this date." I try and make it to every game, and I try and make it to most practices, but I don't want it on my back burner that it's like, "Hey, you have to be there on this date," because I'll most likely be there, but the pressure and the anxiety created from committing to that is too much for me. So Again, I usually make it, but I just keep it pretty informal as far as I'll help when I can help. And it's far more enjoyable for me, and it feels less of an obligation for me that way. So if any of you guys or girls have kids and they want you to coach and you don't think that you can commit the time, see what you can do on a less committal relationship. Generally, they will take any help that they can get and appreciate any help that they can get. So whatever time you can commit or just show up is usually pretty appreciated, and the kids are appreciative of it, all the coaches, the parents. So something to consider. I couldn't from a mental standpoint commit to being really anywhere at any time. So having a more informal approach to this works really well for me, and just makes it very enjoyable for me because I'm there because I want to be there, not because I'm required to be there. And I'm not, if something comes up late in the day and I can't make it to a practice, I don't have that on my shoulder or my conscience that I'm bailing on them. Something else came up and I'll get there when I can get there. So that works for me. But yeah, looking forward to softball season starting up. It'll be Tilly's second year where she is playing. They don't really do T-ball anymore. It's called fastball or fast pitch or something like that. But she's excited. Last year, it was new for her, and she lacked a little bit of confidence there and struggled some. And anything that's new with her, she needs to settle in and get used to it. But she's really excited about it this year, so that's going to be fun. The little kids out there are so cute, and it's so funny to watch. So I'm excited to do that. Her first game, I think, is tomorrow. So we're gonna get out there and cheer on Tilly and the Medford Dolphins. I don't know how it was between Dolphins and Cupcakes, and they chose Dolphins. I feel like it would have been the Medford Marlins if we were going that route, but I was not part of that decision, and I am not a coach on the little girls' team, so I'm just there to have fun and watch them. So hopefully you guys have some stuff coming up in spring that's exciting you, getting ready for the change of seasons, and making you feel like summer and warm weather is right around the corner. I like this time of year. I like getting outside. It's really good riding weather. I love getting the girls outside and having stuff to do, and winter kind of peacing out and being on its way. I don't mind the cold weather, but by this time of year, I'm ready for it to stay light a little bit later, and the next season to start showing its head. So today's blog post and podcast, it's a fun one. I know you guys are going to be very excited about this. Probably going to be the most anticipated podcast drop ever of all time. You asked for it. Site protection details with regard to tapes. I know. It's exciting. It's just as exciting for me. Don't worry. I a lot of guys and girls reached out when I did the initial site protection, how I approached that, and wanted some more information on details. So I'm going to break this up into a few different categories. The first one being tapes. Unfortunately, my tape bins are on the job because I'm at the paint stage and protection stage, so I don't have tapes to show you, but they're all readily available, and you've probably seen me use them before or use them yourself. But I just want to quickly go over what I'm using as far as tapes go and why I'm using them, and hopefully it will prove to be somewhat resourceful to you and save you some headache. But again, I am providing you with the most intellectually interesting blog post that you may have ever experienced in your life. I use a lot of tape. I use many different types of tape for every different application. I'm of the mindset where each situation calls for a different tape. There are different tapes that do things better than other tapes. There are some tapes that do a lot of things okay, but when it comes to tapes, I want to be a master rather than a jack of all trades. I want to use a tape that's good for a specific application, and whatever that means, I will keep them with me. So basically, what I do is I have a sustainer with a bunch of tapes in my truck all the time, and then I have a huge container of tapes that I will bring and just leave on whatever job, either at paint stage or at site protection stage, so that if I run out, I can pull from that. And I always keep the sustainer that's in my truck filled with at least one roll of every other type of tape that I need. I actually, I think I have a thing for tape. I get when I have to fulfill my or refill my tape inventory, I get a little excited about it. I go to the paint store, I go to the hardware store. Sometimes I order tape online. That's a really exciting day for me. But I've entertained having my accountant look at how much tape I use in a year, because it may be qualified as an overhead for my business, because it's just the cost of doing business for every job. Um, and I also have considered rolling tape back up. I use tape for certain situations in a job where they're just down momentarily. And then I'm like, there's really nothing wrong with this tape. I should try and roll it up and save it. But I don't. Usually I don't. Sometimes I'll stick it to a window or a glass door and save it for later. But a lot of times I just end up tossing it, which may not be the most environmentally conscientious thing in the world, but um, I guess I could do better. But I like my tape, and I like tapes for each uses. So if you're a contractor, I'm sure you have experienced pulling tape off of a finished project, usually at the end of the job or when you're looking to clean up breakdown protection, and all of a sudden you peeled paint and spackle off of a wall that wasn't primed correctly, or you rip a finish off of hardwood flooring and your stomach drops, you feel sick, and you panic. You don't know what to do. You're supposed to be getting out of this job tonight. This in an hour and a half, you're supposed to leave this job, and now you've ripped off finish on this hardwood floor that how are you going to finish this? Are you going to hide it? Are you going to try and put something over? You're going to say it was that way, it's somebody else's fault. So one, I like to have in my contract that this is what we do, and we are looking to protect the finishes. And if done right, if spackle is primed properly and used a high quality paint, if you're using the correct tape, it shouldn't peel off. If your hardwood floors are finished correctly and they cleaned the substrate and ensured that there wasn't dust on there and used a high quality finish and using the correct tape, the finish shouldn't be peeling off. But I can't always control what was done before me. So I like to protect myself in my contract with regard to that. But also, I like to use tape that is going to present the least risk as possible when it comes to that. So, um, first would be, delicate surface tape. So, hardwood floors, a lot of pre-finished flooring, you gotta be careful on some sand and finish in place flooring if you're using a finish and it hasn't cured for that long, or you're going to have the tape down for a long time. I generally, as a rule of thumb, try not to tape to hardwood floors. I will roll the tape up onto quarter round if need be, onto baseboard that I can repaint easily. Refinishing floors or touching up floors, it can be very difficult and a headache. So a lot of times I do my best to not tape to floors. Or if I have to, I will use a delicate surface tape and it will be down just while painting or just during demo, and then I'll get rid of it um, until later, so it's not sitting down there for 2 months getting baked in and trampled on, and really binding and bonding to that finish that's going to potentially create damage. So be cognizant of what you're doing. I'm not a huge fan of the, I think it's Scotch brand, the blue delicate surface. It doesn't stick to anything. I put that down before. A lot of times I'll use tape and then I'll tape my flooring protection to that. And the flooring protection just always peels that off. So it doesn't work for me. I don't even find it to be a great paint tape. So I don't use blue Scotch painter's tape. I think it's Scotch. So I use a G tape, which is essentially a plastic reinforced acrylic based adhesive. Sticks really well. You stick it to itself, it won't rip, it won't ruin you. So if it ends up, you pull a long piece and it sticks to itself, you could just pull it right back off. You could put it on something, pull it off, and reuse it. it, as long as it's not down for an extended period of time, it generally pulls off without any residue. I have had residue left on areas that it sat for months on end. Um, Generally, it's pretty good with finishes on pre-finished hardwood floors, on painted walls. But a lot of times, if I'm skeptical of it, I just won't use that on there, or I'll put it on and then remove it when need be. So um, it's the green delicate surface tape. It's a really good tape. It holds up better than a lot of other delicate surface tapes, being that it's plastic and it has a really good bond. So if I need something that's strong and it's a surface that's delicate, but it's not going to sit there for months on end, I will use that tape. I also use yellow and green frog tape. So the green frog tape is heavier, it sticks better, a little bit thicker. Um, it would be more prone to pulling a finish off than the yellow. The yellow, a lot of times I use for paint on areas that were painted within a day or a couple of days that aren't fully cured, because it truly is delicate surface and it generally won't ruin any sort of finish. But that being said, it also does not stick as well. So if you're looking to keep a cardboard or a floor underlayment down, and that's the tape that's binding to the floor, and then you're looking to put a heavier tape on top of that, a lot of time it's going to pull that off. Another thing to keep in mind with the G tapes is their adhesive is moisture activated. So that's good to know if you're putting that on paint or you're putting that on wallpaper. Ideally, you're not wetting it, because that adhesive is going to activate, and while it seals up better, it also sticks better, or has a potential to leave some residue behind. So in certain situations where you're looking to paint, that's an amazing feature because it seals all of the paint out and doesn't let it bleed through. But on a wallpaper where you don't want any sort of adhesive to transfer off that tape, it's not the best. Another advantage to the frog tape, which green is a really good all around tape. If you needed one tape for everything, um, is you can get it at Home Depot, you can get it at the paint store. The G tape I have to get online. A couple of hardware stores, especially the lumber yards, were carrying it, but I can get it online now and get it shipped. So if you kind of have to keep an inventory of that, or else if you run out, you can't just run to Home Depot and grab more. With the frog tape, you can. Um, let's see. All right. So general purpose masking tape, that tan masking tape that everyone knows, um, that I just envision being in one of those tape dispensers that has sand in the bottom of it. They were like huge and clunky from the 90s. You'd see like a huge desktop gray computer monitor. Um, I use that in my masking machine because my masking machine is generally getting put on top of other tapes. So for example, I would put a delicate surface tape onto a finished painted cabinet, and then my masking machine with the inexpensive brown masking tape would tape over top of that. The inexpensive masking tape is very thin. Um, it tears, so it won't pull off in long pieces once it sticks because it's pretty strong adhesive, so it will ruin a finish. It will become very difficult to remove, so I'm usually not putting that on any sort of finished surface or painted wall. Generally it's going over top of something else. I will use it to tape plastic to other plastic. I'll use it to tape the seams on rosin paper or craft paper. So the reason I use this, I could use green frog tape for all of those scenarios, right? I could put that in my masking machine. I could put that over the seams of my rosin paper or craft paper, but it's pretty expensive. So I keep rolls of this inexpensive masking tape, and I'll use that for any situation that I need. To use tape that's not going on a finished surface because it's far less expensive. So I'll burn through that stuff rather than burning through a more expensive frog tape that's just unnecessary. I also keep masking tape on the truck. Masking tape is good for when I use Econo Runner. I don't buy their proprietary tape, so I'll put that on the seams of the Econo Runner. It's waterproof. It's a little pain in the butt to cut you usually use a knife or scissors or your teeth doesn't tear straight. So that's a little bit of a hassle. You can get those applicators or applicators for them. I just don't like to carry them. I always cut myself on them. So I use that a fair amount. It also can be stretched really tight if you need to hold something, almost like a strap. It's good for that. It'll stick to glass, plastic. It doesn't really stick well to ramboard. So I use that a lot, mostly for my flooring under. I use it for other things that I do within carpentry and taping and clamping, but mostly with site protection, it is for plastic or it is for my seams on my Econo runner if I'm putting something down and I need to make sure that it's waterproof. Uh, Another tape. This is in my opinion, the tape of all tapes that I do not use almost ever. The Handyman Special or West Virginia Chrome, which is duct tape. I forget what I heard that on. I think it was a uh, a TV show, like a reality TV show with mountain people or something, and they were like, "Get the West Virginia Chrome," and they put it on the car, the duct tape, and like fixed a bunch of cracks on the body, and they were calling it West Virginia Chrome. So I thought that was pretty funny. No, no hate on West Virginia. I don't know anyone from West Virginia. Looks like a lovely place. I just thought that was pretty funny. Um, Probably could be applicable to a lot of other places, but I thought that was pretty funny. I don't use a ton of duct tape. I'll use it if I'm taping up carpet that I need to hold together to bring out to throw into the dumpster, demolition, trash bags. I'll tape up. It's pretty strong. It sticks well to hard plastic, metal, glass. It does not work well on paper-based products like Ramboard. It tears easily. It's a decent all-around tape. You know, if you had to choose two tapes that you could use for almost anything, it'd probably be duct tape and green frog tape, and you can make do with all of them. But I think that, you know, for flooring protection, there's other tapes that are better. I do use it a lot of times on the seams of my masonite. So if I put a counter runner down, then masonite on top of that, I'll use that to tape the seams because it holds up well. It peels off easily. It's waterproof and it's strong and durable. I can walk on it and sweep stuff over it, and it'll hold up for the course of the job. But for a lot of other purposes, I don't use it. And then for most cardboard or paper-based flooring protection that's heavier, like a Ramboard, and I don't use a ton of Ramboard, but I'll use the Ramboard or another comparable proprietary tape. It doesn't have any tensile strength, so you can't like pull it or twist it. It'll just rip and tear. So it's really good on the Ramboard. It's strong. It has really strong adhesive. So you want to be careful that you're putting that where you're putting that. You don't want that on any finished floor, on any painted surface for multiple reasons. The adhesive is really strong, but also it's so thin, the tape, that when you go to peel it off, it's not strong enough to peel off, and it just keeps shredding into little pieces. So definitely do not put that on any sort of finished surface. You will bang your head against the wall forever. But that's really good for sometimes I'll use it on my masonite seams. And I will use it for Ramboard. I don't find that there's a much better tape out there for that. It's expensive. So I try to use it sparingly, just because it's really not serving much of a purpose other than keep my Ramboard down. But again, don't put that on the floor. Don't put that on any finished surface. I also will carry some double-sided poly tape that I would generally put over top of another tape, and then you can hang your poly off of that, which is a specialty tape, not necessary all the time, but if you have a ton of stuff that you need to tape off and you don't want to be cutting and draping and taping plastic, these double-sided tapes that are meant for poly ethylene plastics are really nice because you can tape off your paint line, then put this double-sided tape over them, and then just drape your plastic on it and be done with it. So that's another one that I keep in my truck. And this is just for site protection. There are obviously a lot more tapes that I do keep in my truck. Flashing tapes, caution ribbon tape, which technically isn't a tape, but I don't want to be biased. I don't want to be putting labels on tape these days. I got to be careful what I what I say on this podcast: electrical tape, foil tape for HVAC, a ton of different tapes I keep in my truck. But I wanted to go over what I keep for general remodeling, and for site protection, paint, that stuff would be in this article. I do keep all these on my truck, and I think if you keep a handful of these on your trucks, that you will find a good application for all of them. Again, I could get away with carrying 2 types of tape in my truck, but I'm more of the mindset I'd rather have all these on my truck and use them for their strengths rather than using something that works decent for everything. I know that this is not the most interesting podcast that you have ever heard, but I hope it is providing you with some insight and saving you some headache. Um, so that you're not ruining finishes, creating headaches within your job, having to get subs back out to do repairs when you're supposed to be wrapping up and moving on and getting to the next one. So I've made all of those mistakes. I will continue to make all of those mistakes, but I try and be as diligent and as careful as possible when setting up these jobs. Again, I try, if I'm taping to finished surfaces, to wait until last minute to tape them, to put another product down rather than tape that overlaps the moldings. Um, and if I have to use tape on finished surfaces, I'll use the tapes that I suggested, and I will put them down as late in the process as possible and remove them as early as possible. I use a lot of clamps. I use a lot of third hands just to create these dust barriers and walls. There's a lot of situations where if I'm taping, I don't mind taping to a wall. If I have to repair a wall, generally a wall ends in a fairly uh, definitive area, meaning if I rip finish off a wall, I can repaint that one wall, and it's generally not a huge issue. Um, I could repaint it up to a doorway, up to a window. Ceilings are tough. A lot of times I try to avoid painting the ceilings because any touch up on a ceiling is very noticeable. Once a ceiling has been lived in for a while, the sheen on it changes. You notice touch ups, and a lot of times ceilings carry through homes. If you think of a first floor and it goes through the foyer and into the kitchen and into the dining room, and it's like you're going to wind up repainting that entire ceiling. So just be cognizant of where you're taping to things. And if you are, I'll tape to a door casing, or I'll tape to shoe molding or a baseboard, because worst case, if that peels that paint off, I could sand it, patch it, putty it, and just retape that shoe molding or one door casing rather than repainting that whole wall. So I pick and choose where I'm taping things. So in a worst case scenario where the proper prep was not done before I came along, if there is damage, I'm isolating and limiting my exposure there. So hopefully these tips help you guys out and you enjoy this paint or this tape podcast. I know it's going to be the most exciting thing that you've heard in a long time, probably going to blow up. I wouldn't be surprised if this hit all sorts of algorithms and essentially I can retire off this podcast. So it was nice knowing you guys. I appreciated all the support over the years. It's been lovely, but I'm just going to go back to my tape and sail off into the sunset. All kidding aside, appreciate the insight. Please keep up with the emails, Tyler at trghomeconcepts.com, with suggestions, requests, questions. Hop online, give us a review, spread the word about the podcast, patronize our sponsors, and I will catch you guys and girls next week. It's going to be tough to follow this one up, but maybe I'll do it. All right, guys. See ya.